My name is Elise Warren. I'm 35 years old, and if you had asked me 6 months ago to describe my life, I would have told you it was stable, predictable, the kind of quiet happiness you build brick by brick until it becomes a home. I lived in suburban Dallas with my boyfriend of 7 years, Marcus Hale, a man I once believed could weather any storm with me. But today, as I sit here in the soft hum of my newly renovated study, the room that used to be his media corner, I can't help thinking about the moment everything changed. The moment a single sentence cracked open our entire life. It happened 3 weeks after Marcus got his promotion. He had always been ambitious, but when his salary jumped from 85 to 140,000 plus bonuses, something inside him shifted. A kind of swagger entered the room before he did. His clothes got sharper, his tone got colder. His phone suddenly buzzed more. Colleagues, industry friends, and occasionally his ex-girlfriend Leah, who had reappeared under the guise of career mentorship. I didn't think much of it then. I should have. One night, I was prepping dinner when Marcus leaned against the counter, arms folded, wearing a smile that never reached his eyes. "Elise," he said, "I've been thinking a lot about financial independence and mental health and modern masculinity." I should have known then that nothing good follows a sentence with that many buzzwords. He continued, "My income, it's mine now, something for my self-care, for my growth. But your income should still support our lifestyle. I mean, you've always been the stable one, the provider. You're better with bills and all that." I stared at him, not blinking, not breathing, just staring. "Marcus," I said slowly, "are you saying my money should cover everything while you keep yours for yourself?" He shrugged, completely unfazed. "Not everything, just the essentials. Mortgage, insurance, groceries, the things women naturally handle better anyway. I'll contribute emotionally and spiritually." He actually said that. "You're the strong one. I'm just embracing the softer side of being a man." I remember setting the knife down because my hands had begun shaking, not with fear, but with disbelief so sharp it made my lungs ache. 7 years of shared life, 7 years of joint accounts, joint decisions, joint sacrifices, 7 years of us. And suddenly, he wanted to draw a line straight down the center of our relationship and push everything heavy onto my side. I tried to laugh it off at first, tried to ask if he was stressed, tried to ask where this was coming from, tried to understand. He wasn't joking. "Elise," he said, stepping closer, "this is healthier for me. My therapist says I need to reclaim space." And Laya said, and that was the moment my heart pricked. Laya, his ex-girlfriend from years ago, the one who had always been a little too friendly, the one who had once told him he needed to step into his power, the one who suddenly started appearing again after his promotion. I swallowed. "Leia said what?" He blinked, realizing too late what he had let slip. "Nothing. She just understands modern dynamics. You don't have to get defensive." I wasn't defensive, I was devastated. But here's the thing about me. When life corners me, I don't scream, I don't crumble, I adapt. So I did something I'd never done in our relationship. Something Marcus had clearly been expecting me to be too soft to do. I opened my own personal checking account and rerouted my direct deposit. When Marcus didn't react, didn't panic, didn't even ask why, I felt a cold truth settle inside me. He had been waiting for this, not because he wanted fairness, but because he wanted control. Over the next week, I shifted into quiet observation mode. I watched how he spoke, how he moved, how he spent. I watched his face when a new package arrived. Designer shoes, a limited edition smartwatch, men's grooming products priced like miniature gold bars, all charged to his new personal card. Meanwhile, he tossed grocery receipts onto the counter like they were my birthright. "Elise, you got this, right?" he'd say casually. "Food is, well, household stuff." Household stuff. As if I were the housekeeper. As if he were a guest with spiritual contributions. I will admit something. Part of me kept waiting for him to snap out of it. To come home one night, drop his bags, and say, "Okay, I'm sorry, that was a ridiculous idea." But instead he grew bolder, more entitled. He stopped offering to take me out, stopped contributing to date nights, stopped buying the little things he used to bring home, the flowers, the snacks, the spontaneous gifts. And every time I gently pushed back, he ran to the same script. "Elise, don't make me feel small. Elise, men are allowed to have boundaries. Elise, you earn more stable income. It makes sense you handle the big stuff. Elise, you're overreacting." I wasn't, but I was waking up. One night, I made dinner and placed the receipt for the groceries on the table in front of him. I didn't say a word. He stared at it like it was a summons to court. Elise, what is this? You said your income is yours. I kept my voice steady, calm, dead calm. So I assumed household groceries would come from mine. But this, I slid the receipt closer, isn't household. It includes the protein powder you wanted, and the imported mushrooms you said were part of your wellness journey. So, I pushed it all the way to his side. This is personal. His face turned the color of a closing storm. You're being petty, he hissed. No, I whispered. I'm following your rules. Something flickered behind his eyes. Something like panic. Something like surprise. Something like, this was not supposed to happen. And that's when I knew. That's when the truth finally surfaced. Marcus hadn't expected me to stand up for myself. He hadn't expected boundaries. He expected obedience. And now he didn't know what to do with the woman who refused to shrink. That night, when he retreated to the bedroom without saying a word, I walked to the kitchen window and stared out into the quiet suburban street illuminated by soft streetlights. For the first time in 7 years, I realized I had no idea who I was living with, and that was the beginning of the end. The first time I told Marcus, I'll cover my half, you would have thought I'd spoken another language. It was rent day. For 7 years, I had been the one who logged into the joint account, paid the mortgage, scheduled the utilities, and double-checked that the insurance auto-drafted properly. Marcus would glance at the numbers if I brought them up, nod, kiss my cheek, and say, "You're better at that stuff than me, babe." But now there was a new rule, his rule. His income was his, so I decided mine would be mine, and half of what we shared. I sat at the dining table with my laptop open, calculator app glowing softly. I had already done the math the night before. Mortgage, split down the middle. Utilities, half. Insurance, half. Everything else went into my personal account. Marcus walked in wearing his new tailored suit, a version of himself that didn't quite match the man who used to lounge in old college t-shirts and eat cereal at midnight. He adjusted his cufflinks like we were in a corporate boardroom instead of our kitchen. "Bills all good?" he asked, grabbing his protein smoothie from the counter. "They will be," I answered. "I've set it so the joint account covers half. I've already transferred my portion in." He frowned. "What do you mean, your portion?" I met his eyes. "Half, Marcus. Half the mortgage, half the utilities, half the insurance. I put my half in. I need you to transfer yours." He stared at me like I'd suggested we sell the house and live in the woods. "Elise," he said slowly, "that's not what we talked about." I kept my voice calm. "No, what you said was, your salary is yours now. Mine supports our lifestyle. I'm simply adjusting that to something fair." "So you're punishing me," he snapped. "I'm matching you," I replied. A muscle in his jaw ticked. He set the smoothie down a bit too hard, and the lid popped slightly, a thin streak of purple running down the side like a bruise. "I didn't mean I wouldn't contribute at all," he said. "I just meant you'd handle the boring stuff, like you always have. I need room to invest in myself. My therapist said—" "Then invest," I cut in, more sharply than I intended, "with your half. I'm not your sponsor, Marcus. I'm your partner, or I thought I was." He flinched, not because I raised my voice. I hadn't, but because for the first time I wasn't cushioning my words for him. He transferred the money eventually, with dramatic sighs, with muttered lines about traditional women not making their men feel emasculated. But he did it, and that was the beginning of a different kind of war. The next battle was groceries. We used to go together. It was our little ritual, wandering aisles, joking about people's carts, him sneaking snacks in while I pretended to be outraged. Somehow everything felt easier when we were pushing the same cart. Now, grocery day was the spreadsheet. The first time I suggested we split the bill, Marcus rolled his eyes. "Elise, it's just groceries. That's like your domain. I don't tell you how to buy kale." I held up the receipt. "Right, but I also don't drink the cold brew or eat the imported almond butter that's apparently now essential to your morning routine." His cheeks flushed. "So what, you're going to nickel and dime me now?" "No," I replied. "We're itemizing, since you wanted separate." That word again. Separate. He hated how it sounded when it applied to him. When I pointed at the list, his supplements, his specific snacks, his luxury coffee, and told him that was his personal share, he slammed his wallet down on the counter. "This is ridiculous," he said. "You're being petty." And again I answered quietly, "No, I'm being precise." I could see it in his eyes. This wasn't how the story was supposed to go. In whatever version he'd written in his head, with phrases he'd picked up from podcasts and, I strongly suspected, from Leia. He was the put-upon, misunderstood man trying to reclaim his space from an overbearing woman. He wasn't prepared for me to simply stop carrying his weight. The shift didn't stay inside our walls. It followed us out. At first, our friends only saw the version Marcus told them. In his version, I was acting weird about money suddenly, trying to control him, punishing him for his success. He told them I was making his promotion about me. It came to a head one night when we were at a small get-together at our neighbor Mike's place. Everyone was sitting around the patio table, empty beer bottles and half-eaten chips scattered between us, the thick Texas air pressing down with its usual humid weight. "So, Elise," one of Marcus's friends, Kyle, said with a half-smirk, "I hear you've turned into a total financial hard-ass." The table chuckled. Marcus looked away, but not before I saw that quick flicker of satisfaction. "Yeah," another chimed in. "What was it Marcus said? That you're making him pay rent to live in his own home?" Laughter again, a little too loud, a little too eager. My cheeks burned. My first instinct was to shrink, to smooth things over, to apologize for making anyone uncomfortable. That had always been my role, the diffuser, the calmer, the one who made everything less sharp. But something inside me had hardened in recent weeks. I took a slow breath and looked directly at Marcus. "Is that what you told them?" I asked. He lifted his hands in a mock defensive gesture. "Babe, don't make it a big thing. I was just venting. They know we're joking." The silence that followed was heavy, because nobody was laughing now. I pulled my phone out. If he could build a narrative, so could I. "Elise," he warned. "No," I said. "You wanted to talk about this publicly. Let's talk about it publicly." My fingers trembled slightly, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I opened a message thread and slid the phone across the table toward Mike. "Read that," I said, "out loud." Mike looked uncomfortable, but he did it. His voice carried clearly in the quiet yard. "My income is mine now," he read. "Yours should support our lifestyle. You've always been the provider. I deserve to enjoy my money after everything I've been through mentally. You make enough to cover the house and groceries. I shouldn't have to stress about bills when you're so good at that stuff." The table was silent. Mike's eyes flicked from the screen to Marcus. There were more screenshots. The one where Marcus wrote, "I don't want to pay for groceries when you're already handling the household needs." The one where he typed, "You're the stable one, Elise. Let me be the free one." I didn't have to say anything. The evidence spoke for me. Marcus started, but his voice cracked. "That's out of context." "How?" Sarah, one of our friends, asked quietly. "What context makes that not awful?" Marcus's gaze turned sharp, then wounded, then angry all at once. "You're all just taking her side because she's a woman. This is exactly what I mean. Men aren't allowed to—" "Marcus," Mike interrupted firmly, "this isn't about being a man. This is about you wanting her to pay for everything while you call it self-care." The conversation died after that. People changed subjects. The laughter felt forced. Marcus sat next to me, stiff as a closed door. When we got home, he exploded. "You humiliated me," he shouted, slamming the front door. "In front of my friends. You made me look like some kind of lazy leech." "You did that yourself," I replied, exhausted. "I just showed them the truth." He paced back and forth, hands gripping his hair. "This is financial abuse, Elise. You know that? You're weaponizing money against me, making me feel guilty for wanting breathing room. Real partners don't do that." "Real partners don't hide their expectations until after they get a raise," I shot back. Something flashed in his eyes then, a mix of fear and fury. "You're trying to punish me for finally believing I deserve more." "No," I whispered, my throat thick. "I'm punishing myself for not seeing this sooner." After that night, things escalated fast. The silent treatment, weaponized distance, Marcus walking past me like I was furniture, the occasional comment dropped like a grenade in front of other people. Real women support their men's dreams. If you really loved me, you wouldn't make me feel like a burden. Other women would be proud to have a man as successful as me. And my personal favorite, you've changed since I got promoted. But the truth was painfully simple. I hadn't changed. I had just stopped pretending this was okay. The breaking point for him came when his luxury SUV lease ended. He had been driving a loaded Lexus RX for years, the kind of car that turned heads at stoplights. Originally, it made sense. We negotiated it together, and yes, I had carried more of the financial load at the time. Now the dealership was eager to upgrade him, a brand new Range Rover Evoque. New trim, new tech, new ego boost. He came home waving the paperwork like a golden ticket. They just need a cosigner, he said, dropping the folder in front of me at the dining table. You know my credit got a little dinged when I switched cards around, but they said with your score, it's no issue. For a moment, I just stared at the folder. Then I closed it gently and slid it back toward him. No, I said. He blinked. What? I'm not co-signing, I repeated. If you want the car, you pay for it, on your terms, with your independence. His face twisted. So you're okay with me not having a reliable vehicle? You have a perfectly reliable one, I reminded him. You just want a more expensive version with a different badge. Elise, this is my image, he snapped. I'm a director now. I can't pull up looking basic. I met his gaze steadily. Then figure it out like the independent man you keep telling everyone you are. The silence that followed was heavy and electric. For the first time, I think he truly believed I wasn't going to bend. That terrified him. So he did exactly what controlling people do when their narrative starts slipping. He told everyone I was the problem, that I was stingy, that I was punishing him, that I had turned into a cold, money-obsessed nag. For a week, I got strange looks from people in our circle, half sympathetic, half judgmental. But they stopped after I started sharing the same screenshots I had handed to Mike. Truth has a funny way of cutting through fog. Even Sarah, who had known Marcus longer than she had known me, pulled me aside one afternoon. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I didn't realize how bad it was. He made it sound like you were suffocating him, but it looks like he's just mad you stopped carrying him. I didn't answer, because deep down I knew she was right. And I knew something else too. This wasn't really about money anymore. This was about Marcus realizing that for the first time since he'd met me, I was willing to let him experience the full weight of his own choices. And that scared him more than any bill ever could. Marcus's anger didn't cool. It calcified. In the days after the SUV incident, he walked around the house like a ghost who believed he owned every room. Silent, irritated, seething. And every time I tried to talk, he either brushed past me or muttered some variation of, I just need space, Elise. You make everything so suffocating. Space. That became his new favorite word. Ironically, it was the one thing he gave me in abundance. 2 weeks later, Marcus announced, casually, over breakfast, that he was going on a guy's trip to Florida. He told me while stirring almond milk into his imported matcha powder, the stuff that costs more than my entire grocery budget. It's for my mental reset, he said, not looking up. I need to be around supportive masculine energy, men who understand ambition. I felt a slow, hollow thud inside my chest. Who's going? I asked. He shrugged. The usual. Some coworkers. Maybe a few industry people. And Laya? I asked, voice even. His spoon froze mid-stir. Elise, he sighed. Please don't be insecure. She's just someone I talk to about career growth. She understands the pressure I'm under. Pressure. The pressure of being a newly promoted man with a 6-figure salary and a girlfriend who no longer paid for his life. Must be unbearable. Fine, I whispered. Go. Take all the space you need. He left the next morning with a duffel bag, a new haircut, and a sense of victory radiating off him. I stood by the window and watched his rideshare car pull away. For the first time in weeks, the house was quiet, breathable, mine. While he was gone, I did something I'd been putting off for months. I invested in myself. Not in designer clothes or wellness retreats or $15 matcha powder, but in the thing I had always wanted, a creative studio. For years, I had dreamed of having a space to write, create, work, decompress, a true sanctuary. But Marcus hated the idea. It's a waste of space, he'd say. We should use the room for something practical, like a media center or a gym. Translation, something he wanted. Now, with the house silent and my savings untouched, I finally did it. I ordered the desk I'd bookmarked last year, the shelves I'd stared at for months, the lighting I'd wanted but couldn't justify, the sound insulation, the new monitor, the soft gray walls that made the room feel like a storm cloud had wrapped around me gently instead of crashing down. The installers came on day 2 of Marcus's trip. By day 3, the room was unrecognizable. Peaceful, soft, mature, my own pulse in physical form. When I plugged in the warm light lamp, the room glowed amber, like a hearth. My space, my breath, my freedom. It was the first time in weeks I felt my shoulders drop. The first time I felt like Elise again. Marcus returned on day 4. He walked into the house smelling of airport sweat and overcooked airplane meals, wearing the same entitled confidence he'd left with. He dropped his bag on the floor. Elise, he called out, I'm home! I stepped out of my study. His eyes landed immediately on the room behind me. The soft, warm lights, the reorganized furniture, the new shelves. He walked past me, expression tightening with every step, and pushed open the door. "What?" he whispered. "Is this?" "My studio," I replied. "I used my money to build it while you were gone." He turned slowly, jaw clenched so tight the muscles twitched. "So you made decisions about the house," he said, "without talking to me about it?" A laugh escaped me, short, sharp, disbelieving. "Marcus," I said, "you went to Florida without discussing anything with me. You demanded I support the household alone without discussing anything with me. You declared your salary was yours, not ours, without discussing anything with me." "That's different," he snapped. "How?" I asked. His lips parted, closed, opened again, but no words came out. Because there was no how, no justification, only entitlement. He stepped into the studio, looking around with disgust. "This is ridiculous," he said. "We don't need a writing room. We could have turned this into a proper media center, or a gaming setup, something useful." "Useful to you?" I corrected softly. His face reddened. "Why are you doing this? Why are you being petty?" "I'm not being petty, Marcus," I said. "I'm giving myself the same independence you demanded." The silence that followed was a storm cloud ready to burst. "You know what?" he finally spat. "Keep it. Ruin the house. I don't care." He stormed out, slamming the bedroom door. The walls shook, but for the first time, I didn't. A week later, we sat in Dr. Martinez's office for our first couples counseling session. It smelled faintly of lavender and warm paper. The soft hum of a white noise machine filled the room. I had hope in that moment. Thin, fragile hope, but hope all the same. Marcus didn't. He immediately launched into a monologue about oppression, about emasculation, about boundaries, about me being too controlling. Dr. Martinez listened quietly, occasionally jotting notes. Then she set her pen down. "Marcus," she said gently, "how do you define partnership?" He blinked. "Support, emotional care, understanding." "And fairness, Firmin?" she asked. "That's subjective," he said quickly. She looked at him, then at me, then back to him. "Marcus, a relationship cannot be half partnership and half self-benefit. You want a lease to fund your life while you retain your income entirely. That isn't independence, that is an imbalance." He stiffened. "You're not understanding my vision." "No," Dr. Martinez said gently. "I understand it very well." He stood up suddenly, chair scraping against the floor. "I'm done," he said. "I'm not paying to be judged. Elise, if you want to fix this, stop sabotaging me and start supporting me again." He didn't wait for a response. He walked out. The door closed behind him with a soft, final click. I sat there frozen, not because he left, but because of what Dr. Martinez said next. "Elise," she murmured gently, "have you considered that Marcus may have been preparing for this separation long before he told you?" My breath stilled. "What do you mean?" "Hidden accounts, sudden income changes, boundary assertions tied to money, discussions with an ex about modern dynamics. These are often signs of premeditated financial withdrawal." Those words hit me like a slow, cold wave. That night, when I got home, I looked. Not because I wanted to invade privacy, but because I needed to know the truth. And the truth cut sharper than betrayal. On our shared tablet, under a rarely used profile Marcus thought I'd never check, there they were. Bank statements, credit cards, transfers, hundreds and thousands in movement, all hidden, all intentional. For months. He hadn't shifted to independence. He had been preparing for escape. I sank onto the floor, tablet trembling in my hands. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't stress. This was strategy. And for the first time since everything began, I finally saw Marcus for who he had become. Not lost, not confused, not struggling. Calculating. Marcus didn't come home that night. Not the night after either. He didn't call. He didn't text. He didn't even pretend to explain. It wasn't silence out of shame. It was silence out of strategy. On the third morning, I woke up to a neatly typed note left on the kitchen counter. "Elise, I'm moving out for a while. I need space to think clearly. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Marcus." No apology, no explanation, just a directive, like I was an obstacle he needed to maneuver around. He had already taken his clothes, some electronics, his toiletries, his cologne. But what he didn't take said more than what he did. He left his framed photos of us, left the mug I painted for him on our 3rd anniversary, left the scarf I knitted him one winter when he wouldn't stop complaining about Texas cold, left the little pieces of our life that held meaning, because none of it meant anything to him anymore. 3 days later, through a mutual friend, I found out where he'd gone. A luxury high-rise loft downtown, $2,400 a month, floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, artisanal lobby, coffee bar. the kind of place influencers film apartment tours in. It was everything he'd ever wanted his life to look like. Appearance over substance, aesthetic over responsibility, image over intimacy. And he'd run to it like it was salvation. At first, I expected guilt to take root inside me, but something else grew instead: relief. Quiet, subtle, unmistakable relief. With Marcus gone, the house felt lighter. No passive-aggressive comments about my spending. No lectures about modern masculinity. No slammed doors. No tension. Just silence, and for the first time in months, peace. I ate dinner alone and didn't feel lonely. I worked in my studio and didn't feel watched. I slept without bracing myself for the next argument. For a moment, I allowed myself to exhale. But Marcus didn't stay silent for long. On week 2, he called. Not with remorse. With panic. "Elise?" His voice wavered. "I need help." I sat on the couch, legs pulled under me, sipping tea. "What's going on?" "My rent is due," he said. "And, well, with the car payment and my credit card and the deposits I had to make, I'm short." "How short?" I asked. "Like, almost all of it," he whispered. I closed my eyes. Of course. He had been living like he made $300,000, not $140,000. He had drained his savings to fund his solo image while preparing to leave me holding the rest. "Elise," he said, voice breaking, "can you just help me this month until I get stable?" My reply was soft, calm, fatal. "No." He sucked in a breath. What do you mean, no?" "You wanted independence," I said. "Now you have it." "Elise, please, don't do this, not when I'm struggling." "And when I was struggling," I asked, "when you shifted every responsibility onto me, when you told me your money was yours but mine was ours, did you consider me then?" Silence. I continued, "Marcus, this is the life you fought for. I'm just respecting the boundaries you set." He didn't argue. He hung up. 3 days later, his mother texted me. "Elise, please tell me you didn't refuse to help Marcus with rent." I took a breath. "Mrs. Hale, he asked for complete financial independence. I'm giving it to him." She didn't reply. But an hour later, Marcus did. A string of messages. "I never thought you would actually stick to this. You're punishing me. Real partners don't abandon each other. You don't love me anymore. That's what this is." But he was wrong. This wasn't lack of love. This was finally loving myself. The next blow came from his own lawyer. Marcus had assumed, confidently, that if he filed for separation or divorce, he'd walk away with spousal support. After all, he had told the world he was the struggling one, the oppressed one, the financially overburdened one. But reality hit him like a brick wall. He called me after the meeting, voice shaking with disbelief. "Elise, my lawyer says I can't get alimony." "I see," I said, folding laundry calmly. "They said since I out-earn you, I wouldn't qualify anyway," he said. "And since I insisted on separate finances, it basically kills my case." "That seems fair," I answered. "And," he swallowed, "they said I might owe you if you pushed for it." I let the quiet stretch between us. "Elise," he whispered. "I told you not to play with boundaries you didn't understand," I replied. He made a soft, wounded sound. But the worst was yet to come. A week later, my attorney emailed me. She had uncovered something deeper, something darker, something Marcus had tried very hard to hide. Not just one secret account, not 2. 6. 6 hidden financial accounts. 6 private credit lines. 6 systematic withdrawals from our shared savings, over $20,000, spread out over 6 months. All categorized as business development, mentorship consulting, personal advancement, and Laya coaching. My stomach dropped. Laya wasn't just giving him advice. She had been actively coaching him on how to financially detach from me while preserving himself. Not cheating, but betrayal all the same. A psychological, strategic betrayal. My lawyer explained gently, "Elise, he was building an exit ramp while still expecting you to fund the road behind him." The court didn't take kindly to it. Marcus was ordered to return the funds before any asset division. His finances tanked. His credit plummeted. His parents refused to bail him out. His loft lease was now dependent on co-signers. The Range Rover dream evaporated instantly. He was drowning in the independence he once demanded. Meanwhile, I stood on solid ground because I had saved myself. That night, I sat in my studio, warm light glowing on the walls, fingers resting on my keyboard as I stared at a blank document. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I wasn't relieved. I was simply awake. For the first time in 7 years, I could finally see the truth without flinching. Marcus didn't want independence. He wanted control without responsibility, freedom without consequences, a partner without partnership. And when he realized he couldn't have all 3, he chose to burn the bridge instead. But he forgot one thing. I built the foundation. He only decorated the house. And the woman who builds, she always survives the collapse. The divorce moved faster than either of us expected. His finances were a wreck. His lawyer was blunt. His parents were done funding lessons he refused to learn. And I was tired. Tired in the bone-deep way a person gets after months of being twisted into shapes that don't belong to them. We signed papers, filed statements, submitted evidence. Weeks blurred into a rhythm of documents and decisions. And then, suddenly, it was over. Or so I thought. For nearly 6 weeks, Marcus disappeared. No calls, no texts, no social media drama, no passive-aggressive notes shoved under my door. It was as if the moment the legal system forced him to face the consequences of his own choices, he simply evaporated. During that time, I rebuilt my life, piece by piece, quietly, softly. I moved into a smaller townhouse closer to my job, modern, clean, sunlit, not a single memory of him in the walls. I adopted a dog, a sweet rescue mutt named Milo, who had eyes like he'd lived 1,000 lives. I built out my studio more. Plants, better lighting, new desk setup, shelves of books I'd always meant to read. Every evening, I'd make tea, sit by the window, and watch Milo snore on the couch. It felt like breathing after holding my breath for years. The first night, I realized I didn't miss Marcus at all. I cried. Not from sadness, from the strange ache of relief. So when my phone rang on a quiet Tuesday afternoon and his name flashed across the screen, my breath caught, not from longing, but from sheer disbelief. Marcus. I stared at the screen until the call almost stopped. Then I answered. Elise? His voice was small, smaller than I'd ever heard it. Yes, I said. Calm, steady, distant. I wanted to ask if you'd meet me for coffee. Just to talk, not to argue, not to fix anything. I owe you something, and I'd like to say it properly. A part of me wanted to say no, to stay in the peace I'd built, to protect my calm. But another part, the part of me that had held on to questions, that wanted closure, that wanted the story to end without loose threads, said yes. Fine, I replied. Neutral place, no history. There's a cafe on Elm, he said. Quiet, no one we know. Tomorrow, I agreed. We hung up. And for the first time in months, my hands trembled, not with fear, but with curiosity. What could he possibly have left to say? The next day, I walked into the cafe early. Muted jazz played through the speakers. Sunlight spilled through the windows, making the dust motes shimmer. A barista wiped down a table while humming softly. I ordered a tea and took a seat by the window. A few minutes later, Marcus walked in, and I almost didn't recognize him. Gone were the designer clothes, the aggressively styled hair, the polished shoes. He wore a simple gray hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. His hair was grown out, his face unshaven, his eyes tired. He looked human. Not curated, not performing, not posturing. Just a man who had been humbled by life. He approached slowly, stopping in front of the table. Elise, he said softly. I nodded. Marcus. He sat down, and for a moment neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't hostile. It was reflective, heavy with everything we'd dragged each other through. Then, finally, he exhaled. I owe you an apology, he said. A real one. Not the half-hearted, defensive ones I used to give. I mean a real, honest apology. I stayed silent, waiting. He swallowed hard. The whole financial independence thing, it wasn't about money. I lifted an eyebrow. Then what was it about? He closed his eyes briefly, as if the truth physically hurt. Control, he whispered. It was about control. My chest tightened. He continued, voice low and fragile. I felt small, Elise, for a long time. I felt like you were the stable one, the capable one, the one who had everything together. And instead of telling you that, instead of dealing with it, I wanted to tilt the relationship so I could feel like I was in charge of something. My breath hitched, but I said nothing. He kept going. When I got the promotion, I finally felt powerful, for the first time in years, and I wanted to build a life where I didn't need anyone, especially not you, because needing you made me feel weak. That's not weakness, I murmured. He shook his head. Not to you, but to me, it was unbearable. He swallowed again, voice growing hoarse. Laya didn't help. She kept telling me I should demand more, take up more space, push boundaries. She made it sound like you were the barrier between me and my potential. You let her influence you, I said quietly. I did, he admitted. And that's on me. She fed the part of me that didn't want partnership, the part that wanted admiration without accountability. I stared at him. He met my gaze. Elise, I didn't want to separate finances. I wanted control over you. I wanted to reshape our life so everything revolved around me. And when you didn't follow the script, I panicked. I pushed harder. I manipulated. I lied. I tested how far I could go. He took a shaky breath. I thought you'd break before I did. My heart squeezed. But you didn't, he whispered. You didn't break. You didn't bend. You just held your boundary. And for the first time, I saw how wrong I was. I looked down at my cup. The tea had gone cold. He leaned back, eyes shining with unshed tears. I destroyed everything because I couldn't handle being with a woman who didn't need me the way I needed her, and instead of admitting that, I tried to make you the villain. He wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand. I'm sorry, Elise, for all of it, for the manipulation, for the lies, for treating you like a safety net I was entitled to. You didn't deserve any of it. I inhaled slowly. Then I asked the question that had haunted me for months. Marcus, what did you really hope would happen? He exhaled shakily. I wanted you to fight for me, he said, but not in a healthy way. I wanted you to fight, to give me everything I asked for. I wanted you to prove I was worth sacrificing for. I wanted to be the prize, the center. And when I didn't? I asked. He looked broken. When you didn't, I realized the only reason I felt powerful was because you kept letting me take advantage of your kindness. His voice cracked. You deserved a partner, Elise, not a project. Silence fell between us. Not bitter, not angry, just the soft silence of two people finally telling the truth. After a long moment, I stood. He stood too. Elise, he said softly. I met his eyes. I'm glad you learned something from all this, I said, truly. But I learned something too. He swallowed. What's that? That I can live by your rules, I said. I just never imagined I would live better with them than you ever could. His face fell. Not in shock, in understanding. I gave him a small, gentle nod. He nodded back. Then we went our separate ways. No yelling, no tears, no promises, no mourning. Just closure. Real, final closure. I walked out of the cafe into the afternoon sun, feeling weightless. I had gone there to end a story. Instead, I walked out, having reclaimed myself. The first night after the coffee meeting, I slept better than I had in years. Not because I felt triumphant, not because I felt vindicated, not because Marcus finally admitted the truth, but because, for the first time since the entire nightmare began, there was nothing left to fix, nothing left to untangle, nothing left to question. Just peace, pure, uninterrupted peace. A week later, the final divorce papers arrived in my mailbox. A simple envelope, thin, unimposing, almost insulting in how quietly it closed a chapter that had nearly broken me. I set it on my kitchen table, next to a cup of tea and Milo's leash. The house felt warm, sunlight spilling through the shutters, a soft breeze drifting through the open window, the faint sound of my neighbor mowing his lawn. Normal sounds, human sounds, nothing like the tight, suffocating tension that once lived in every corner of my old house. I opened the envelope. I read the signatures. I felt nothing. No sadness, no victory, just confirmation. A life I no longer recognized was officially gone. And I was still here, still standing, still breathing, still me. Marcus moved back into his parents' place. I didn't hear from him again. Not directly, but word travels. His mother told a mutual friend he was learning responsibility. His father had him working part-time at the family business to pay off debt. The luxury loft was gone. The upgraded car was gone. The hidden accounts were empty and closed. The image he had built so carefully had cracked open like thin glass. And now? He was learning how to live within his means for the first time in his adult life. Part of me felt sorry for him, just a sliver. Not because I wanted him back, but because I could finally see the truth. Marcus wasn't malicious. He was insecure, deeply, desperately, dangerously insecure. And insecure people often disguise their fear as dominance. Meanwhile, my life grew quiet. Beautifully, meaningfully quiet. I woke up early, made breakfast in silence, took Milo for a walk around the block. I bought fresh flowers every Sunday and placed them in a glass vase on my desk. I reread books I hadn't touched in years. I let myself exist without being measured, without being monitored, without being compared to an ex-girlfriend whispering empowerment in my boyfriend's ear. My studio became my sanctuary, a place to write, think, dream. Sometimes I'd sit in the soft armchair in the corner, knees pulled to my chest, and just breathe. Breathe without bracing for criticism. Breathe without anticipating conflict. Breathe without shrinking myself to keep someone else comfortable. Freedom wasn't loud. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a dramatic sunrise or fireworks or some triumphant gesture. It was quiet. Steady. Like a heartbeat I had forgotten was mine. A month after the divorce finalized, I got an email from Dr. Martinez. Just a warm, simple note. Elise, I hope you are well. I want you to know that choosing yourself is not selfishness. It is survival. I'm proud of you. DM. I didn't realize I'd started crying until I tasted salt on my lips. She was right. Choosing myself had felt like betrayal, but in reality, it was rescue. One evening, as I was walking Milo down the block, my neighbor Mike waved from his driveway. Haven't seen Marcus around lately, he said. No, I answered, scratching Milo's ears. We ended things. Mike nodded slowly, thoughtfully. I'm sorry you went through all that, but I'm glad you're, free of it. I smiled. Me too. He lifted a beer in my direction. To peace? I laughed. To peace. And for the first time, the toast felt real. The part that surprised me most, I never missed him. Not the man he had become, not the man he pretended to be, not even the man he was in the beginning, because now I understood something crucial. If a love requires you to shrink, if a love requires you to bend until you break, if a love is only love when you're small enough to fit inside someone else's insecurity, it isn't love. It's a cage. And the moment I stopped fitting inside Marcus's expectations, he tried to rebuild the relationship to keep me contained. He failed, because I finally learned something he never wanted me to know. I didn't need his approval. I didn't need his validation. I didn't need his money or his promises or the illusions he dressed up as partnership. I needed me. Just me. The woman who paid the bills without complaint. The woman who kept the peace until it suffocated her. The woman who held everything together while he unraveled. The woman who walked away when staying would have destroyed her. That woman, she deserved more than the version of love Marcus offered. She deserved freedom. And she finally had it. On the last page of the divorce file, there was a small note, one that Marcus had written at the very end. I hope you find someone who sees your worth without needing to take it from you. For a long moment, I stared at it. Then I folded the papers, placed them in a drawer, and whispered, I already have. Myself. Some lessons cost a fortune. Some cost years. Some cost your entire understanding of who you thought you were. But the freedom you gain after paying that price, it's priceless. And I'm never giving it up again.